mystical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Yes, so welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network here on this Thursday as we wrap up the Dave Chappelle and Black Star week of Saturday Night Live. It is week number 6 here. Can't believe we've made it all the way to week number 6. It's been, two sets of 3 episodes, and this one was the first one, I think I would say very interesting. There was some sketches that went absolutely viral, and we spoke about it a little bit. If you are a listener and a patron, where I met with Nicole and we did a little bit behind the scenes at the Saturday Night Network, we talked about how crazy those first few episodes were with regards to storylines. I had no idea what to expect for 4, 5, and 6, but to me, they were really fascinating to talk about, if anything. So I'm excited to wrap up this run with 2 very special patrons here on the Patron Feedback Show and also answer your questions. You can always send in your questions for these shows on the day before or the day of these shows. We have our format on Twitter or in our Instagram stories, and we're going to answer your questions right now today on this Thursday and look forward to the Keke Palmer episode. So joining us today, let me introduce Rusty Ralston is here. Rusty, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. A little nervous, but I mean, that's just I'm doing better than I was back in March when I was up. So
yeah. Well, Rusty, let me just say, I'm so excited to get to talk to you. I know you're a huge fan of Saturday Night Live, and there's nothing to be nervous about. We're just going to talk friend to friend about the show today. So excited to hear your thoughts and answer the questions and get your feelings about this season so far. So we're going to get into that in a moment. But let me introduce another great patron that we have with us, very active in our Discord, and always excited to get to talk to him about Saturday Night Live. It is Max. Max, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be here. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, I feel like.
Yeah, me too. I'm very hyped to get to talk to you as well. So let's sort of get into it. Let's talk about how we're feeling about the season so far now that we're heading into our, the beginning of our longest break. We're going to have a huge break, obviously, after the next 3, but this really feels like the first main stoppage since the season started. So Rusty, 6 episodes into the season, how are you feeling about it so far?
I feel like it's better than a lot of people give it credit for. Like Amy Schumer was Dave Chappelle but like the first 4 episodes I loved. Like I just loved and I loved and I loved.
What about those first 4 episodes did you really love?
Oh, it just felt like there was something like refreshed about the show. It felt like they were trying to experiment with new things, and I like that experimental nature, and also harkening back to one of my favorite sketches was the Brendan Gleeson, the excessive bleeding sketch, which I always love. Like, it's not the classic Julia Child sketch, but it's amazing. It was still amazing. And it's just, I know a lot of people didn't like that episode, but I did. So.
Yeah, actually, I think people did like the Gleason episode from what I saw, but it's the I said this yesterday on the By the Number show. I did a poll on Monday for the roundtable. I said I was very curious. What is your favorite episode from this season? And I figured we're going to get a lot of Gleasons. I expected we're going to get some Chappelles, and it was across the board. Like, people have different feelings about this season. Almost every single episode got voted on by a lot of people as their favorite. So I'm not surprised to hear different opinions like that. And I think that the first 4 episodes, it makes sense that you enjoy them, especially if you like experimenting, because that's what happens when you have a new cast and new writers and changes. Is we're going to experiment a lot. So I love to hear that, Rusty. Max, what about you? How are you feeling about the season so far?
Yeah, I'm feeling really high on it. I mean, I'm loving kind of all the new cast dynamics and how everything's coming together. There hasn't really been an episode that I've hated, really. I think, personally, my least favorite actually was Brendan Gleeson, but there hasn't been an episode that I came out of it saying I didn't enjoy this at all. So I think that's really good.
Okay, this is good, Max, because we don't get a lot of people on here who didn't like the Gleason episode. So why didn't you like that one in particular?
See, I think it was honestly a lot of, maybe it's just the Try Guy controversy surrounding it. I know you guys have talked about that a lot. And I think, even though I personally enjoyed the sketch, I think a lot of everything that came out of it kind of soured the episode for me looking back a little bit. So,
yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, speaking of controversy, we did address the Dave Chappelle controversy a lot this week on the show. I think that I would say I went back and I listened to our talk on the roundtable about him being booked for the show. And we had about a 40-minute discussion on the value of booking a controversial host. And if you can sort of watch it while taking your thoughts away from some of his comments and I think we sort of looked at everything from all sides and evaluated what, as very strong SNL fans, what we feel comfortable with and what we don't. And then we sort of left it to the audience to judge how they felt. And I did put a small clip of that up, about 10 minutes of our 40-minute discussion on YouTube, in case you didn't check out the full roundtable and you want to see what our thoughts were on that. But, we have been talking about this for a couple weeks now. And I think, this is sort of the last time, we're going to look back at this discussion of Dave Chappelle being booked for the show. So I would love to get our patrons' feelings now that we're sort of, it's in the rearview mirror, how we're feeling about Dave Chappelle being booked for the show and overall thoughts on the episode. And then we'll get into some of the sketches and your questions in just a little bit. So Rusty, I'll start with you on this one.
First of all, I'll just have to admit, I actually didn't watch most of the episode last Saturday because I'm non-binary and I don't really feel comfortable giving someone who was kind of openly transphobic, in my opinion, not really comfortable with him giving views. So I'm just figured, all right, well, it's a free country. I'm not going to give him my ratings. So, but I feel like they did, whoever it was, I'm not naming names here, whoever it was knew that Dave Chappelle would get a lot of hype, not a lot of hype, a lot of talk, good or bad. And it's just, I guess, like, from an artistic point of view, I don't really like it, but from a cold corporate profits point of view, I get it. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see both sides that we did talk about for sure. And, thank you for sharing that with us, Rusty, because I think that, that you're not alone. There's a lot of people who felt like they didn't want to tune into the episode because of this situation. So to ignore it would be ignorant on our part, just to address the episode and act like everything was normal, because for a lot of people this week, it wasn't a normal viewing of Saturday Night Live. And that's unfortunate, because this, again, is a comedy show. We want everybody to have fun and enjoy it. And I think that, like I said, I think the episode to me was something that I in particular enjoyed, but maybe that I was slightly privileged that I was able to look past some of these things at the time. And I think that, it was a fascinating discussion that we've had all week. And Max, I would love to just get your thoughts now that it is in the rear view mirror, how you're feeling about what happened with Chappelle this week.
Yeah, so my first kind of initial reaction when he got announced was, ooh, Dave Chappelle. And then 5 seconds later, ooh, Dave Chappelle. It kind of all came back to me in a few seconds why that maybe wasn't the best decision. And I mean, through the week, I was kind of battling myself, do I want to watch this? Do I want to support him? And it really came down to, I'm a big fan of the cast. I watched the show for the cast, not for the host 90% of the time. So well,
that definitely makes sense. Sorry, Max, go ahead.
Yeah, there's also an add-on. Looking, now that it's over, I think it went better than it could have, all things considered. But overall, yeah, I was very iffy on it throughout the whole week until it happened.
Yeah. And I think, look, if on the podcast, as analysts, as fans, if we feel conflicted about the episode, you have to imagine that people who were working there as well felt conflicted. So that there's no, as I think I said on Monday, there's no easy answer or easy thesis statement that we're going to take away from this. All we know is that it was just a very weird week of Saturday Night Live. And though there was a lot to enjoy, I am happy that we're past it and we can look forward with hopefully good thoughts towards the Keke Palmer episode. So I'm excited to get into all of that. So we're going to take your questions in just a moment, but I always love to ask our patrons if there was one sketch or moment from the episode they just want to make sure that we talk about. So Max, maybe I'll start with you on this one. Was there one moment from the episode you really enjoyed this week you want to make sure we talk about?
I think just the Black Heaven sketch with Mikey Day in general was the highlight of the episode for me. I think just everything, the entire build-up of that sketch and him coming out, all the cutbacks to Dave and his friends, that all really worked for me. So.
Yeah, that was fantastic and one of the best Mikey roles I've seen in a long time. Rusty, was there anything from the episode that stood out to you as something you did enjoy?
The Please Don't Destroy sketch with Molly Kearney, former Ohio Attorney General Molly Kearney. It was just and I'm probably going to say this again and again, but might be the best Please Don't Destroy sketch ever. And like the fact that they got like the actual Steve Kornacki, it's just amazing. And it was so funny, and it was just I love it, and I love it, and I love it. It's definitely a bright spot to a very conflicted episode for me. So
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I think that was really nice that was in there and that they put that together on a week that was obviously conflicting for everybody. So let's take your questions, and we're gonna get into things for this week. So Rusty Max, make sure you have the questions in front of you, and we're gonna start with our friend Nick Storr, who wants to know. This is a little bit more of a philosophical question, but I am curious of both your opinions. Nick wants to know what makes a great sketch. For him, the potato hole sketch was a great one because he never saw the punchline coming. So for him, I guess not knowing what the punchline is going to be helps make a great sketch. But Rusty, for you, what to you makes a great sketch?
Oh, that's kind of a hard question for me, considering I'm in college for filmmaking, and part of what goes into filmmaking is script writing, and I tend to lean more towards comedy. I tend to really like rather low key humor, but I also tend to like escalation. So like those two, I think those make like a great sketch for me. I get why surprise would make a great sketch, but like escalation for me is better. It's just a matter of taste. Like one of my favorite sketches is, I forget which episode. I think it was season 16. It was during the Renaissance era, where there was this guy talking about his deer heads, and it was just increasingly getting smaller, and it was increasingly getting more obvious that he was just pasting deer antlers on like a bunny and a squirrel and like an insect, and it was just, that's the type of escalation I love. So it's low key, but it's just like it keeps getting crazier and crazier in a sort of controlled way. That's what really makes a great sketch for me.
That makes a lot of sense. Max, what about you? What makes a great sketch to you?
Yeah, I also am a huge fan of anything that kind of escalates and builds up as it goes. And I also really love the sketches that lead up to a big payoff. Like the one I kind of wrote down was the Alcoholics Anonymous sketch from Jack Harlow's episode, where it kind of kept building up and getting more and more absurd until the very end when Tom Hanks came in. I love those kind of sketches.
Me too. I definitely enjoy those. I think that what makes a great sketch for me is not just what appeals to us, who I think are in general, and I'm using the royal us, in our community, which is people who are experts at evaluating sketch. We look for very, very specific things like escalation and like I guess like structure in the words and stuff like that. But I like sketches that also appeal to the masses in a way as well. And part of that for me is like, are they based in reality? Like, can you buy into a world where the subject line and matter of the sketch actually exists? So if you're watching and you're like, okay, what if I was this person who was walking into the house and then the crazy person was there and then this thing happens? I think that to me is like an automatic starter to boost a baseline of a very good sketch. And I think the potato hole sketch, which to me I described, had all of the elements. I agree with you, Nick, had all of the elements of a great sketch, because you could believe that this is an actual morning show where they have an actual musical guest on, that they don't know what this means. And then this is what it actually means. And the whole thing about the white characters, using, lines from Black culture and, like basically abusing the potential of what this could potentially mean, is something that like you could imagine this actually happening. So that to me is great. I think the fact that it had so few cast members in that sketch, it was a big deal. I'm not particularly a fan of like the roll call sketches where you have a million cast members with impressions. So I feel like if you have like a set environment, I think the writing is always tighter. It was also like the writing, it's the actual length of the sketch was pretty tight as well. So to me, it checks a lot of boxes about what makes a great sketch. And I think that if I was to ever, which I haven't yet, like made a top 10 sketch list for myself, I think they would have a lot of similar elements to what Potato Hole had. So I hope that answers your question, Nick. All right, let's take this next question from Ryan Murphy. Ryan wants to know, how would you compare Please Don't Destroy in their first season to Please Don't Destroy in their second season? So we've seen 3 Please Don't Destroy pre-tapes so far this season. And Rusty, since you were such a big fan of Please Don't Destroy this week, let me start with you as well on this question. So how would you compare sophomore Please Don't Destroy with rookie Please Don't Destroy?
It's kind of a little bit of a hard question, considering Please Don't Destroy kind of came out swinging. Like, their debut was just like the highlight of the Kim Kardashian episode. I feel like the difference between rookie and sophomore Please Don't Destroy is the fact that I think SNL has a lot more confidence in Please Don't Destroy this season than last season. Because like last season, they would always end up like, getting moved or cut. And this season, there's a lot more they're experimenting more. They're getting outside of the office, and they feel like more of a regular staple of the show. It kind of reminds me of Franken and Davis, how they were out of the gate swinging because like PDD, they were sort of their own thing before the show, sort of, and they came out swinging, and the more they did stuff, the more confidence the show had in them. And I feel like PDD is in the same position. There's more confidence in the show, and they were able to get guests like the host and Steve Kornacki. You can't have like some guy on possibly the busiest nights of his life. Like, you can't have that without a lot of confidence. So I think it's just confidence from the show, from the producers, from everybody. It's just, that's the difference, I think.
It's a great point. Max, how are you feeling about Please Don't Destroy in the second season versus the first?
I think purely on a pre-tape standpoint, I preferred them much more in their first season. I think out of the 3 pre-tapes they've done this year, I've really only enjoyed the election night one, which, as Rusty said, is also one of my favorites from theirs, but the other 2 I wasn't really huge on. So from a purely pre-tape standpoint, I preferred them last year, which also helped when I realized they were the TikTok guys who made the Doom Breaker sketch, which I love. Everyone loves that, I think. But I don't know. This year, they're still doing it for me when they write sketches that they're not in. I still love those, but in terms of their pre-tapes, unfortunately, I don't think it's hitting as hard this year for me. But.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought this was a fascinating question from Ryan because I haven't noticed any real differences so far from year 1 to year 2. I don't think there's anything like I could struggle to find a noticeable difference, though I do understand that probably the audience, since they're more familiar with Please Don't Destroy, there's that extra hype when the video now pops up. This is something that we talked about a lot in the first season of theirs, which is like comparing them to the Lonely Island. And then when you would watch SNL, you would really be excited that Lonely Island, like, here comes a digital short. And now I think we sort of hit that point where it's like, okay, they've been doing enough original material that we're excited to see what they're going to be bringing to each episode. And I think what I really like in year 2 so far, at least 2 out of 3 of them have really hit for me. The Gleason one, when they were playing college students, I think that one was like original and fresh. And then I love this election one as well, which in a way, like, unfortunately probably did get a little bit overshadowed by the rest of the episode, just in terms of like overall discussion. But I think it was such a fantastic pre-tape. And the other one, the third one, I didn't love as much, the one from the Megan Thee Stallion episode, because I felt like that was sort of like going back to their roots, which I think some people really, really liked, but I preferred that they're doing like fun and fresh things, bringing always in guests. And like, to me, that's the magic of it. So I think 2 out of 3 have really hit for me. And I think that the expectation that they're going to continue to try new things is what's exciting in year 2. So I think I'm probably higher on them now than I was before. All right, buckle up. We got a big question here from our friend Blood Meridian. Okay. Blood wants to know, one of the more fascinating arcs this season have been those of Chloe Fineman and Sarah Sherman. With Chloe, the performer that was supposed to happen 2 seasons ago till she had a rough 2/3 of last year, has been building this season from the huge success of her backstage shorts and has become one of the most visible, reliable, and consistent performer in the cast today, getting showcase roles, and has been in almost every single episode so far this season, taking on various impressions and many utility roles like she was meant to a few seasons ago. She's finally getting her breakout season. As for Sarah, she's been in more and more diverse roles, such as celebrity impressions, straight man roles, commercial spokesman, among others, while still maintaining her comedic persona and her oddball sense of humor at the same time. What are your thoughts in regards to Kweli and Sarah's arcs this season so far? And what do you predict and hope happens with them by its end? Thanks for the great work and sorry for being too rambly. No problem, blood. All right, let's talk a little bit of Kweli and Sarah. Max, let me get your thoughts on them this season.
Yeah, I think with Kweli, I do agree she was definitely meant to break out sooner than she did, but that's also kind of the fault of COVID with Kate and 80 staying on the show longer than I think they originally planned to. It kind of pushed Chloe's back a bit, but now that they're gone, I think she has a lot more room to shine, and she's been doing that since the season started. So I am looking forward to her kind of continuing that path throughout the season. And then for Sarah too, I think like that arc that she's taking is almost like natural. Like everything I've seen about her personality, she just seems like such a friendly person who's very easy to get along with. And I just have a feeling she meshed with the writers very well. That's just letting her get these roles that maybe other people aren't able to get if they don't mess with the writers as well. So, yeah.
All right, Rusty, what do you think?
Chloe is, yeah, I think you're right, Max. Chloe kind of got hampered by COVID and Kate and 80 staying on for a couple more seasons because Chloe feels like she is like the utility female player. The utility woman player. She's great in roles when she gets them. Like, okay, maybe not all roles. I don't really care for Elmo, but in most of the roles, she's great and she gets into them, and she's just. This is her breakout year. And Sarah Sherman, I think Sarah has shown a lot of range, and she was actually my favorite of the cast members. That joined last year, and she has a personality, and like it's just, but she's also kind of a chameleon. She can really like kind of get into roles that, and it takes me a while to realize, that's Sarah Sherman, and it takes me a while to really get her. So I think she's a one of a kind talent, and I think she's she kind of reminds me of Amy Poehler, actually. So
yeah, that's
regard,
interesting.
So,
that's very interesting. When it comes to Sarah, I think that she is. First of all, we're really blessed, in my opinion, that Sarah Sherman came on the cast when she did. I think in season 47, her being there, the last year of some of these like legendary women on the cast that have now left the show, and now she's like sort of becoming probably the future star of Saturday Night Live, is Sarah Sherman. She has so far for me, the quickest hit rate of like rookie and sophomore cast members. Like everything she does is pretty much a success across the board. So I don't see many, like, except for maybe sometimes they'll criticize her yelling a little bit. I don't see many people who are anti-Sarah on the show. And I actually think that she's a little bit old school in terms of her ability to like, become the lead star of the show one day, maybe, where, in that, Will Ferrell vein of like her rising above the rest. I think maybe in year 2 is probably a little bit early for that, but I think we could sort of start to look back at like 48, 49, 50 as being Sarah's time on the show where she started to rise into this like next star Saturday Night Live thing. So I think the trajectory is great. And there were a lot of questions last season of like, who's having a better rookie season, Sarah or JJ? And like JJ had a crazy rookie season, but like I think there's no doubt that Sarah's like just, like overpassed JJ at this point as far as like the things that she's done on the show compared to him. Though I wouldn't knock his career in any sense. I just think that Sarah's just been so fantastic. But with Kweli, I think Chloe's a fascinating case study to start to look at, because I think you could talk about Kweli Feynman very similar to the way you could talk about Chris Redd, which was Chris at the beginning of his career was extremely predictable in terms of what he was going to do in a lot of the sketches. And then, I mean, last year he was definitely a star of the show, but before that he sort of started to break out, and you start to see these moments where it was like, oh, okay, oh, this is interesting. Okay, Chris is doing stuff. They're giving him more leash. And now we're seeing them give a lot of rope to Chloe to be able to do these things, that I think that Chloe could start to step up in the way that we looked at Chris last year as being, okay, Chris Redd is starting to take over the show. Like Chloe's becoming one of those people that's starting to take over the show. So I love what we're getting to see from Chloe. Any more thoughts on that? We're good. Okay. All right, let's keep going with our next question. This comes in from our friend Jeremy. Jeremy wants to know, Mikey's been so up and down this season. Why do you think that is? And which types of hosts do you think he works better with? So I think what Jeremy is referring to, the fact that Mikey had an incredible episode this week, where he had like over 8 minutes of screen time. I think Miles Teller he had over 9 minutes. So it's really like been bookending the season with great Mikey episodes, but very up and down before that. So Max, what do you think? How do you feel about Mikey's season and sort of like when he does better on the show versus when he doesn't?
So I think with Mikey, he plays a very good straight man role. And something I've noticed over the years, I don't know how true this is, but I feel like whenever the host is a POC, I feel like Mikey appears more. And when the host is just an average white guy, I feel like he appears less because they take those roles that he would take. And it's something I noticed with Beck too when he was still on the show as well. But I feel like
interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'd never haven't thought about that. Yeah.
I was just ending it that way. That's all I had.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that is an interesting point. Yeah. I guess that is true that he's, as being like the other in the sketch, I think he probably shines more in that way. So that's an interesting thought. Rusty, how are you feeling about Mikey?
I was going to say Mikey is just fits the straight man archetype perfectly. And I think he shines more when he has a host with like a little more personality, like Megan Thee Stallion or Dave Chappelle. Like when that host has that personality, like he contrasts it perfectly. Whereas with someone that's more generic, like Jack Harlow, I guess, or Brendan Gleeson, he just kind of fades into the background. So it really depends on whether or not, like, if the host is just like generic white guy or generic McActor dude, then he sort of fades. But if it's like someone with like a known brand and personality and just like, how they work and they're distinct, and like when you see it, it's them, it's them, like he works perfectly.
Yeah, I think Mikey is the perfect example of an ensemble piece. He's never going to be like the main player in the cast. I mean, he's going to have like really good episodes and others not, but I don't think he even wants that for himself from what I've seen. It's like, he's not like writing himself into roles that is always like the main role. We talked last night from a numbers perspective on Mikey a little bit, like the trajectory of his career was like in his rookie season 42, he had the most appearances that he's had in his entire career in that season. And so like when he came on the show, everyone was like, oh my God, this is going to be a star. Like this is, he was coming in like post Taron Killam. Like everyone thought he was going to be like the next big thing. And he didn't really like turn out to be that way. It was more just like, he had his like Mikey and Streeter stuff that he sort of fit in. And there was like a good sketch or two of his once every couple episodes, but he's really just part of the ensemble that we've seen the last few years. And I have to wonder if he's, whatever the new era is going to look like once we finally fully get there, if Mikey has a place in it. But I am very happy with his season so far, especially with the things that he's written. I think he's wrote a lot of really good sketches this season, especially writing his roles into them. Black Heaven being no exception to that. It's just, I'm enjoying what we're getting from Mikey. So if this is his final season on the show, getting a Dave Vs. Pumpkins, getting a Black Heaven from him, I mean, these are great things that we got, and I'm happy to have him here. Okay, let's take this question from Lana. Lana Bracewell wants to know, will Sarah be a permanent Weekend Update host? Yes, please. Okay, well, this was a discussion we had a lot on the roundtable on Monday. Rusty, what do you think? Will Sarah be a permanent Weekend Update host one day?
That's hard. I don't know if she would make I don't really see her as like your typical Weekend Update host, which is fine. But I feel like if she is going to be the next Weekend Update host, I hope they just give her like solo, because she works. I feel like I feel like she would work better as a solo than like working with somebody else because like a lot of the best Weekend Update hosts have the ones with the most personality have been solo hosts. You know, Dennis Miller, Norm Macdonald, Chevy Chase. They've all been solo. They haven't really worked with anybody. And like, and there are two types of the hosts that work with somebody and the hosts that don't really work at all with anybody and they prefer to be themselves. I think Sarah falls into the latter category. If you get what I'm saying, I'm kind of rambling here, but
you're doing
you
great.
get what I'm saying.
I do get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah,
Max, what do you think though?
Yeah, I don't know if I would want Sarah to be a host for a couple of reasons. Like, I know the show has a history of taking writers to anchor update, and Sarah, they're not confined to that obviously, but Sarah isn't a writer. And even apart from that, I don't think I would want to lose her in sketches because I think I wasn't watching the show at the time, but from what I know, even when Cecily did update that one season, she was in sketches less. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was part of the reason why she didn't want to do it anymore was because she wanted to be in more sketches.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to lose Sarah in those sketches. So I think even though I liked the Sarah news segment, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to lose her in sketches in favor of that every week.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't mind if Sarah had like a permanent or a semi-permanent segment, maybe, 10 out of 21 episodes a year. She had a segment called Sarah News that she did a little something on update, but I don't know that I need her necessarily as a main anchor and be taken away from that.
kind of like Rosanna, Diana, sort of
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be, that wouldn't bother me. So like I said, she hits every time. Okay. This question comes from our friend Ike Moore. Ike wants to know, where do you rank Dave when it comes to best pure stand-up comedian hosts in SNL history? So we had a lot of stand-ups. SNL originated by having a stand-up hosting the first episode ever, and we had stand-ups throughout the decades. But Max, do you have any stand-up memories of any hosts?
Oh, that's a tricky question because I don't know if I've been watching the show long enough. I only started in season 40.
From whatever you did watch.
Yeah, I started in season 42, so all 5 John Mulaney episodes I've been there for. But I don't know, like Dave is obviously like one of the most iconic stand-ups of all time, so I feel like he has to get some credit for that. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of tricky for me to answer. I feel like.
Okay, that's no problem. But Mulaney's a good answer. So Rusty, what do you think? Any stand-up memories for you?
I've been watching SNL on and off since like season 38. So I've had some stand-up memories. I think my favorite stand-up episode is actually Chris Rock from season 40. Like that monologue is still one of my favorite monologues in SNL history. But I feel like Dave, controversial opinion, Dave has sort of lost his touch. Like not even going into transphobia, he just sort of lost his touch a little bit. So like if I were to watch 2022, which I'm probably not going to, I'm feeling like it might be like below his 2020, which is below his 2016. So from what I've heard, but I feel like Dave, while he's iconic, I don't think he would. I think he wouldn't rank that high on the list of like greatest stand-ups to ever grace SNL. Because like if he hosted in like say 2008, 2009, like he'd be up in the top 5. But like nowadays, I don't know. I really don't know.
I think this has been one of the most interesting things that has come out of me doing this podcast is like getting some of the panelists' opinions over the last couple of years, where I've been told many times from some of our panelists that they just like absolutely love it when a stand-up hosts SNL. And I don't know that I've ever like thought about that before I was doing the podcast, where I was like, oh, I really just particularly love stand-ups when they host. Like I go back and I remember Jerry Seinfeld hosting a couple times, and I've always been like a Seinfeld fan and a fan of his stand-up and stuff like that. And like to me, it's enjoyable whenever we do get a stand-up set. I think like pre all the stuff coming out about Louis C.K. I did enjoy his stand-up monologues there, but obviously there's different perception now. But when we had a stand-up that was booked for the show, I was excited to hear their part of their stand-up set as the monologue. But I think I've noticed in the last couple of years, at least, we always get that information, which is like, oh, this monologue has his set or her set from this tour that they were doing, and it's like, all right, well, if you're just gonna like sort of like recycle your material for Saturday Night Live, like I don't know. Is this a crazy take? Like, I don't love that. You know, I'd rather like see, even though maybe I didn't go on tour with these people or go to see them in show. Like to me, like I like it when like they come to Saturday Night Live and like everything is like written fresh for the show. And I think that there's a tendency when a stand-up shows up, and you can see it in spades with Dave, where it's like, oh, you're a stand-up, so we're just gonna give the segment to you to let you do what you want to do with it. And it's fine if you're a fan of like comedy and stand-up and that's what you want to enjoy. But like if I could YouTube Dave Chappelle stand-up and then watch one of his sets on YouTube and go to SNL for the monologue and not see anything different, like that's sort of a problem to me. So I do find it a little bit of a crutch sometimes when SNL books stand-ups, which I didn't wish. Like I said, I just would like to keep it fresh. So to answer your question, Ike, like there's a lot of memorable stand-up sets from the history of SNL. I think in general, like they're fun to go back to on a rewatch to see like what they're talking about at the time. But in the live viewing, like I don't know that I love it as much. Okay, let's take this next question that comes in from Luke Brawler. Luke wants to know, do you think SNL will continue to invite Dave Chappelle to host future episodes? So this has been a really big question. And then we did ask also our social media audience this week, and it was pretty split 50-50, like whether he was going to come back or not. Max, what do you think? Do you think SNL will have him back?
See, I think if you asked me this at 11:29 on the night of the Amy Schumer episode, I would have said no. I would have said there's no way they're inviting him back. I don't think it's worth it with his controversies. But now that he did host again and he clearly has friends at the show and people there who support him, I think it's likely that we'll see him again, whether in 2024 or just some other time. I wouldn't put it out of the question.
Yeah, let me also combine it with our next question from Victor Higgins, who's in our chat today. Victor wanted to know, hi, Victor. Would you like to see Chappelle host again, whether it's election or not? So we asked, will you think it happened, but do you want to see it happen as well? So Max, do you want to see him back one day?
That I would also have to say no to. Personally, It's... And the controversies is one thing, but just personally as a viewer, I also don't like the format of his episodes. Like I don't necessarily enjoy the 15-minute monologues that only lead to 3 sketches. Like I like nights where there's like 6 sketches or whatever. Like I don't love the format of Dave Chappelle episodes, even everything else aside. So personally, I would not want to see that if we didn't have a choice. That's
fair. Rusty, let's take these 2 questions from Luke and Victor. So do you think SNL will have Dave back, and do you want Dave to come back?
Do I want Dave back? I'm non-binary. I don't think it's less touch. No, I don't want him back. But do I think Dave Chappelle will be back? Runoff election between, it's kind of like the runoff election between Warnock and Herschel Walker, Texas Ranger. Like it's just not. I'm split on it. It's obvious that he has friends on the show, but how long will those friends be at the show? I don't know. I would not be surprised if they don't invite him back for the 2024 election, but I will be even less surprised if they do. So that's my stance on it.
That's fair. As far as me wanting to have him back, I'm good. I've seen, I think we like everything I could see from Dave. I think that as far as, like I said, controversy aside, his 2016 episode to me was fantastic. The 2020 episode was the opposite, and 2022 was also very good. So I would rather like end it sort of like on a high of like he's done like 3 episodes as host of the show. I don't need him to be a 4-timer or a 5-timer or whatever, because like I just don't know like that they're going to be that much different, and that the episodes that he brings to the show are like so fantastic in a way that's like, oh my God, I have to see this every single couple years. Like, I just don't know that we're going to see, if it's 2024, like that's not that far from now. Like, I don't know that things are going to be so fresh. Now, saying that, if it was 2028 or 2032 and it's been a long time, and maybe he's a slightly different person then, or changes it a lot. I mean, I've always said I love to see hosts at different places of their lives. I think I would be okay with that. But I think 2 years from now is way too soon to have Dave Chappelle back on the show. I would like give it 6 years or 12. So that's probably the answer for me. Let's take this question from our friend Matthew Lloyd Kelly, and I'll answer this one. So Matthew wanted to know, was there a different monologue in Dress versus Air? And yeah, so from my understanding, there was a slightly different monologue. It wasn't fully different. So I think there's been like articles and news published somewhere that he basically had a different 15-minute monologue that was only meant for the dress audience. I think he had other jokes in the dress monologue, from my understanding, that were more directly addressing some of his controversial comments and things like that. But I don't. I think that's actually not the controversial stuff, but it is. It's very normal that a lot of stand-ups will try different material in dress that does not make its air. So I would say that, yes, there was definitely a different monologue. It's not the exact same one from dress to air. And also, despite the fact that Dave, and I spoke to NBC about this, Dave was solely responsible for the material that was written into the monologue this week. There was nobody at SNL that wrote any of the material that ended up in the monologue, not even an assist. But there was supervisors who went and heard the monologue material and asked for pieces to be taken out of the monologue. So it's not a writing credit, but it's just a like, hey, we don't think you should do this. I think you can do this part, but that's that. So I think that's very normal, by the way, for, dress versus air for stand-ups. All right, let's take this question. Oh, okay. First time I think she's ever asked a question on the patron feedback show. Blessed to have a question from Nicole Rovine, who wants to know, let's turn our attention to Keke Palmer. Keke Palmer is the biggest get of the season, according to Nicole. Agree with me and give me your reasons why. All right, bold claim from Nicole. Rusty, what do you think? Is Keke Palmer the biggest get of the season?
Maybe not the biggest get, but maybe like second biggest to Megan Thee Stallion. But yeah, Keke Palmer, I am very excited. I saw her on Password. She's a great host. I kind of loved her since watching her as a kid on True Jackson VP, which I watched when I was 7 years old. So
wow.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome for feeling old. But yeah, it was. But yeah, I am so excited. I think she is going to be one of the best hosts this season. I think I'm really looking forward to her episode, and yeah, I think it's just going to be. I'm just really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've also heard that Keke Palmer is like a super nice person. Like people love Keke Palmer. So I think that's really like, I don't think anybody's coming into that week feeling conflicted because they're excited that Kiki's there. But Max, what about you? Is this the biggest get that SNL has gotten this season?
Yeah, I'm also back and forth. Is it Keke or is it Megan? I think Keke might be the biggest only because she has never been associated with the show before, whereas Megan has. So, but I love Keke Palmer. I think she has a great energy, and yeah, I would say she's the biggest get and is definitely the host I'm most excited for so far.
Yeah, for sure. I think like from a ratings perspective, is she like the biggest name that was booked for this season? That I don't know. Probably Dave Chappelle was the biggest name booked for the season, just on a Q rating perspective. But as far as like a big get, like SNL trying to there's just like so many names that have been brought up in the last couple of years of like, why won't SNL book this person? Like this person would be great to host a show. Like Keke Palmer was on that list. So I think as far as like we're concerned, like this is a pretty big get. So I would agree with Nicole in that sense. We also have another question from Ike who wants to know, do you think we could see a Jimmy Fallon cameo during Kiki's episode, given that he is involved with the new Password game show she hosts on NBC? So Max, you think we're going to get Jimmy on the show?
I would not be surprised. I'd be happy to see him. I think it would make total sense for him to be there. And obviously they're friends, so I think he would want to support her.
All right, Rusty, what do you think? Will we see Jimmy on the show?
I can pretty much guarantee that Jimmy's going to be on the show. Like, if he has like any reason to cameo, he will cameo. Like he's just, I think he's just like in love with the show and he wants to, especially he's also friends with Kiki, and it would be a big disappointment if he doesn't cameo, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I think I saw some people in the chat the other day that wouldn't be excited about this, but to me, it's been a while since I've seen Jimmy Fallon on SNL. So obviously he's on the Tonight Show like 5 nights a week, but when it's airing new episodes. But for me, I don't know, I still think he was a great host of the show. I think he was a great cast member. Like I would love to see it, and I think he could add some fun. Always having former cast members back on the show is fun for me. So as long as it fits in well, and yeah, if they do it's been a long time, I think, since we've seen a host who is plugging something specific ends up doing a sketch that's relevant to the specific thing. Like we didn't see Miles Teller do a Top Gun sketch, but like I could see SNL doing a password sketch and then having Keke Palmer there and Jimmy Fallon there. Like I think that's probably the place where I would see him and be totally okay with it. So for me, yeah, I would love that. Okay, and let's take our final question from our friend Kylie Leonard. Kylie wants to know, what storylines are you looking at for the December episodes? So thanks, Kylie. I mean, this is always a question that I like to ask when I'm doing these podcasts is like, what are the major storylines that we're looking at? So we know we have Keke Palmer coming in with musical guest SZA. Then we got 2 more weeks of shows after that. So we have 3 more weeks before our big winter break. And what are the things we're looking forward to seeing in these 3 episodes? Rusty, what do you think? Any storylines you're watching?
2, in fact. One of them is more screen time for the new cast members, like Marcelo, like Longfellow, Kyrie, Devin Walker. They are hilarious. I love Hernandez and Kyrie. They're like my favorite cast members. I would catch a bullet for them, to be honest with them. And I'm just psyched. And the second one, there is a Weird Al movie. And I am severely hoping and praying and blessing on like balking kids and whatever, praying that Jesus Christ and Space Ghost that they get Weird Al on some way, somehow. That's got to happen. I saw him in concert. There's no excuse why SNL does not have Weird Al. I will die if SNL gets Weird Al.
Okay, I love that. Thanks. I love the passion, Rusty. So thank you. Max, what about you? Any storylines you're watching for December?
I have to add on to that. I think it has to be Weird Al and Daniel Radcliffe together because I watched that movie the day it came out. Such a good movie. Daniel Radcliffe was so great in it, and the two of them on the show together would be amazing. But I think I have really 4 big storylines I'm looking at in regards to the cast. But I feel like Michael Longfellow has just been everywhere on the show, and I'm just very looking forward to seeing if he continues that path, if he keeps getting these big roles and sketches so early on. Molly Carney, I feel like they've really mostly appeared in pre-tapes, and that's like where they've done the most. And I want to see them if they like can do that in a live sketch as well, because Election Night and the new cast they were really good in, and I want to see them if they can bring that energy to a live sketch. Then Devin Walker is another one that I'm looking at. Just I feel like with Devin, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. His biggest episodes have been with the hosts, have been POC, and I'm curious like if that's a trend that's going to continue for him.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, go ahead, Max. You have one more.
Yeah, just had one more. It's just Chloe and Heidi. I want to see them keep doing what they're doing, being a good duo.
Yeah, for sure. For me, that's a good jumping off point for me because I think Heidi's a big storyline for me. We talked about it last night on By the Numbers, just how Heidi has taken a lot of these Kate roles and just started to dominate the season. She's putting up Kate numbers in the show, which is really interesting. Different cast members, obviously, but it's an underreported story how much Heidi is dominating the season. So I'm curious if that's going to continue into December. I think you both said it beautifully, but Molly Carney, I want to see them more in sketches. I think that, we've seen a lot of Marcelo. We've seen a lot of roles for Devin in certain episodes. And then definitely Michael Longfellow feels like a repertory player at this point, but Molly has not had that same opportunity, unfortunately, and I would love to see more of them in sketches. I think that would be fantastic for the show if we, walked away at the Christmas show and be like, okay, we're halfway through the year and we've really seen all the rookies succeed on the show. That would be very exciting for me. And either give me, a really fun alumni that we've been craving for, like to the Bobby or Vanessa or like somebody that we haven't seen in a long time to host the Christmas show, or perhaps maybe we do get that. Yeah, or Leslie, or maybe we get Carol Burnett, like a lot of people were talking about for the Christmas show. So like, I'm hoping. Last year we had this horrible Paul Rudd situation where the Christmas show was basically canceled and we had to watch, which again, one of my favorite sketches of all time, but we had to watch Dick in a Box for the 200th time on Saturday Night Live. I think for me, I would love to get an actual Christmas episode that's fun, that feels good, that everyone's excited about and hyped going into January. So I can't wait to find out who's going to be hosting that show. And I'm sure we'll find out sometime next week at some point. All right, such fantastic questions, and I really appreciate both of you answering them with me today and everybody who sent in those questions. If you're listening along and you would like to participate in a patron feedback show, you can join us in our patron program at patreon.com/the SNL Network. And one of the great perks is to register for these shows, which will be running all season long as we start to look back at one week and look towards the next. So I hope you will join us if you're considering it. Want to thank Max and Rusty for being with us today. Max, I'll start with you. Is there anything you want to plug?
Not really. I'm a 21-year-old college student just enjoying SNL. So I don't know. I'm active in multiple SNL Discord. So if you ever see me in there, feel free to say hi. But that's, nothing to plug.
For sure. Well, it was great to get to meet you on the podcast, Max, and to have you on with us, and exciting to get to talk to you all the time in our Discord. Happy to have you part of the conversation. Rusty, so great to get to talk to you. The internet was fantastic tonight. Is there anything you would like to plug?
I just have a YouTube channel. It's just Rusty Ralston. I post whatever I want, and not really related to SNL, but like it's like I drink like local drinks and go to fairs and all that stuff. It's just my little hangout where I do things while I work through college and try to get by as a writer. So.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, definitely check that out. And then with regards to what's coming up here on the Saturday Night Network, so we will not be with you throughout the weekend. We're going to take a break from being with you on a Saturday night. So I'll get to, I guess, hang out with some friends on the Saturday. I don't know what I do on Saturdays when there's no SNL. It's weird. I feel like I need to at least put myself in a box.
Thanksgiving.
But, yeah. Well, Canada, Thanksgiving's passed, but in the US, Thanksgiving's coming up. Yeah. So for me, I'm going to enjoy the weekend. And then on Monday, speaking of Thanksgiving, we got our super fans here. We'll be in our usual Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern slot where we have Bill and Haskell and Haynes and Sammy, and they're going to break down their favorite Thanksgiving sketches of all time, some of which you may see in NBC's SNL Thanksgiving special, which I believe will be airing next week in the middle of the week. So they'll preview some of those sketches and talk about some deep cuts that maybe don't get brought up enough for Thanksgiving sketches. And then next Wednesday night, very happy to announce, which I mentioned on the By the Number show last night as well, that we will be joined by the legendary band leader of the Dave Letterman show, like Late Night and Late Show with Dave Letterman, and also former SNL cast member, former SNL host, Paul Schaefer will be with us next Wednesday night. We're going to have an interview with Paul. Tom Bones Malone will be here as well, former SNL band member as well. And we'll be back with James Stevens and myself to do that interview. So if you want to watch our interview with Paul Schaefer, that'll be next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, thanks to all of the listeners, to Rusty and to Max. And my name is Jon Schneider from the Saturday Night Network. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.
All fizz.